As the last rays of the setting sun disappeared behind the towering trees, Sarah's car sped down the winding, desolate road. She was on her way home after a long day at work, eager to curl up in bed with a good book. But fate had other plans. Without warning, the headlights of an oncoming car blinded her. Sophia swerved to avoid a collision, but it was too late. The world spun, metal screeched, and her world went black. When she awoke, the car was a mangled wreck, steam hissing from the hood. Her body ached, and her head throbbed with pain. Struggling to unbuckle her seatbelt, she managed to crawl out of the wreckage, blood dripping from a gash on her forehead. The night was eerily silent. No sign of the other car, no passing headlights, just the ominous rustling of leaves. Trembling, Sophia stumbled away from the wreckage and tried to call for help, but her phone had no signal. As the minutes turned into hours, Sophia's anxiety grew. She felt a presence watching her from the shadows. Her heart raced, and cold sweat soaked her clothes. What was out there? With no other choice, she began walking down the road, hoping to find a house or some kind of help. The darkness seemed to stretch on endlessly, and the forest closed in around her. Her footsteps echoed eerily. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spotted a dilapidated, abandoned house nestled among the trees. Relief washed over her as she approached the decaying structure. The front door creaked open ominously, and Sophia hesitated but stepped inside. The interior was just as decrepit as the exterior, with rotting wood and cobwebs everywhere. The air was thick with an oppressive, musty odor. Sophia had a sinking feeling that she was not alone. She explored cautiously, her heart pounding with each step. In one of the rooms, she discovered an old, dusty mirror hanging on the wall. As she gazed into it, her reflection began to distort. Her face contorted into a grotesque, nightmarish visage, and she stumbled back in terror. The mirror seemed to whisper dark secrets. Fleeing the room, Sophia found herself in a dimly lit corridor. Sinister whispers filled the air, and ghostly figures flitted in and out of her vision. Panic set in as she realized that she was trapped in a house that defied the laws of reality. Desperation drove her forward, and she reached a room at the end of the corridor. Inside, she found a bed covered in dusty sheets. Exhausted and terrified, she collapsed onto the bed, hoping to find some semblance of safety in this forsaken place. But as she closed her eyes, her nightmares began. Vivid, horrifying visions of her car crash replayed in her mind, each time ending with her death. She would wake up in the room, only to fall asleep and experience the nightmare again. The cycle continued, each iteration growing more gruesome and terrifying. Sophia's sanity began to unravel as the relentless nightmares haunted her every moment. She couldn't distinguish between reality and the dream world anymore. She was trapped in a never-ending loop of death and despair. In her moments of lucidity, Sophia realized that the house itself was feeding on her fear, growing stronger with each passing nightmare. She had to escape, but every attempt was thwarted by the malevolent spirits that haunted the cursed place. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia's body withered away, consumed by fear and exhaustion. She knew that she couldn't endure this torment much longer, but deep within her, a glimmer of determination flickered. With the last of her strength, she mustered the will to confront the nightmare. She faced her reflection in the cursed mirror and whispered, "I am not afraid." The mirror shattered, and the house shook with a deafening roar. Sophia was flung through a vortex of swirling darkness, and when she opened her eyes, she found herself back at the site of the car accident. The sun was rising, and the wreckage had vanished. It was as if the nightmare had never happened. Tears streamed down her face as relief washed over her. She had escaped the house of horrors and the never-ending nightmares. But as she drove away from the accident site, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her back to the real world, something that hungered for fear and darkness.